Fridays are the best for a lot of reasons. The end of the week, you got the weekend coming up, especially this weekend. You got New Year's Eve coming up on Sunday, so this Friday is especially fun because you're going to have a little extended weekend. Hopefully you get an extended weekend into Monday for New Year's Day. But Fridays are great here on the Morning Pit because it's our Q&A day, our mailbag day. We get to take questions from you, the Pitt fans, about everything on your mind, whether it's football, basketball, recruiting, or anything else. We take all your questions and we answer as many of them as we can right here on the Morning Pit. So let's jump into it. The Morning Pitt Mailbag right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, the Morning Pitt Mailbag here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We do it every Friday, so I always look forward to this. Usually put the call out on Tuesday or Wednesday asking for questions from Pitt fans on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, but the Between Fifth and Forbes message board at Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Is where we solicit questions, and we always get a lot of great questions, and it's always fun to go through those questions. I mean, to be honest, I'll be completely honest, it's not a day off because I still record the video and still have to talk and edit and do all those things. But it's a little bit of a day off in terms of thinking of topics, and you guys kind of do the thinking for me. So I really appreciate that. You guys come up with things to talk about, and I answer as many questions as I can. And I sit here and go through them. And so it's fun. And sometimes I think about just sort of going through the thread blind and not even not reading the questions ahead of time. But it's a little more fun to at least have a little bit of an idea of what we're going to talk about. And so I looked ahead, and there's some great questions out there. So let's jump into it. Of course, you know what I ask you to do. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you never miss any of our Pitt video content, whether it's these Morning Pitt videos Monday through Friday, our weekly live stream that we do every week like we did on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Me and Jim Hammett get together for a little Pitt sports talk, and we include you in that conversation. Post-game shows, we're going to have one of those after the Syracuse game tomorrow. That'll be a lot of fun. We're going to get together, probably talk until about 3. I mean, it might not be exactly an hour, but I think that'll probably work out well. It's a noon tip-off. Game will go till 2 or a little after, and then, right around, we'll just go live shortly after the game ends, and we'll stay live until 3 o'clock, and it'll be right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you don't miss any of that stuff. And then the website, of course, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to stay up on all the latest Pitt sports news. All right, let's jump into the questions. The first one came from Ched the Jet. He says 2 questions. One is the OC, and can he get the program up and running by the season opening? Secondly, the corner situation, even adding the Nebraska portal corner, looks thin and iffy. Who plays back there? All right, so first question, the offensive coordinator. Can he get the program up and running by the start of the season? That's always going to be a challenge whenever you change the play caller, offense or defense. There's always going to be a period of transition. And I don't know what Cade Bell is going to be able to do between now and August 31st. I'm not sure. I mean, we'll see. We've seen various types of transition, right? I mean, we've seen it go really well. I mean, Matt Canada hit the ground running, and never really looked back in 2016. 2017 was a bit rougher, a bit more of a transition. Obviously the transition from Sean Watson to Mark Whipple even went worse. I mean, 2019 up until this past season was the worst offensive season of the Pat Narduzzi era at Pitt. It really was. You go back and look at 2019, they were god awful on offense. I mean, it was terrible offense, and I didn't really think it could get any worse than that until this past season, which I think, I forget, I had these numbers calculated out about offensive touchdowns and what the actual numbers were. Maybe I can bring it up here real quick. From 2019 versus 2023. And I'm bringing up the Pitt stats. These were the 2 worst seasons. And the way I always sort of prefer to judge an offensive season is how many offensive touchdowns did you score? And that's a little bit more relevant than points per game, because the points per game are going to include the defensive touchdowns and the special teams touchdowns. 2019, they scored 11 rushing touchdowns and 17 passing touchdowns in 13 games. That's 28 offensive touchdowns in 13 games, which, obviously is not very good. This past year, they scored 10 rushing touchdowns and 17 passing touchdowns, so 27 in 12 games. Per game average, I'm guessing that you would end up with a slightly better touchdowns per game average this season. Let's see. 27 divided by 12. You might be able to do that math in your head, but I can't. 2.25. 28 divided by 13. 2.15. So by about a tenth of a touchdown per game, this year's offense was better than the 2019 offense. The 2019 offense actually was the worst offense of the Narduzzi era in terms of offensive touchdowns per game. One of the key differences is that year's team had a much better defense. That was one key difference. Another key difference is that year's team had a quarterback who could actually win them a game here and there. Made some big plays against UCF. Made some big plays against Penn State, even in a game that they lost. That was probably their second best performance against Penn State was in 2019. Obviously, 2016 when they won was the best, but 17 and 18 were far worse than 16, obviously, and worse than 19 as well. I'm getting off track. Kenny Pickett was able to, lead them against UCF, and he was able to lead them, finally to a comeback win against Eastern Michigan in the bowl game. But in terms of offensive production and scoring, 2023 was a better offense than that. 2019 was the worst offense. So bringing it back to the original question, look, we've seen some years where a new offensive coordinator doesn't go so well. It doesn't fit, and for whatever reason, there are major struggles. Mark Whipple's debut season was probably the worst first year by an offensive coordinator at Pitt under Pat Narduzzi. He would be the worst. I think Sean Watson's 2017 was probably second worst. 2022, I know you want to go to Frank Signetti and say that was the worst first year by a new OC, but that offense at least had something they were good at. And I don't think you could really say that about 2019. They weren't very good at rushing. They threw the ball all the time, but they weren't very good at that either. And 2017 was just a mess of quarterbacks, and that was a team in transition. That was a team struggling through those third-year blues that we used to talk about all the time. But at least 2022, they were good at something, and that something was handing the ball to Izzy Abanikanda. I think they'll find things. I think there will be things that they are good at this year. It's just a matter of how well Cade Bell can make the personnel that he inherits fit the offense that he wants to run. And it's probably vice versa to that. It's how well he can make the offense that he wants to run fit the personnel that he inherits. And that's going to be the big question. That's what we're going to wait and see. I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think you automatically assume there's going to be a period of transition. Now, it might be second week of October, and I'll be saying, of course, we all knew there would be a period of transition with this offense. I'm not really interested in waiting for that to happen, though. I'm not really interested in waiting for a period of transition. I'm sort of the mind that should hit the ground running. We'll see what he does. So your question, can he get the program up and running by the season opening? I think so. I think he should be able to. I think if you're a good coach, you can design the offense or design the defense or whatever side of the ball you're on around the players that you have and make it work. Second question, cornerback situation. And cornerback, because obviously there are questions about quarterback. Cornerback, they added Tamon Lynam, the transfer from Nebraska. They've got a couple seniors returning in Rashad Battle and Javonte Royal. We'll see what their level of contribution is. And then you kind of work your way down. And you've got Noah Bigelow and Tamarian Crumpley. You've got Rylan Gandy as a redshirt sophomore. You've got Shadarian Harrison as a redshirt freshman. Then you've got some true freshmen coming in. If they can get another transfer, that probably wouldn't be the worst idea. I don't think it never really hurts to add experience, depth, and potential starter. I'm kind of the mind that I would like to see some of these younger players play. You brought in Lynam, and you apparently feel like he's a good fit for the defense. So, okay, maybe pencil him in for a starting job. But I want to see Rylan Gandy. And he played a decent amount down the stretch there. If you really don't believe in Bigelow or Crumpley or Battle, even though Battle's been hurt, or Royal, then you might have some tough conversations there. With one or two of those guys, because if you really, Bigelow and Crumpley are redshirt sophomores, redshirt juniors now. Battle and Royal are going to be redshirt seniors. I mean, these are guys you've had around for 3, 4, 5 years. You kind of know what you have, or you should know what you have, and you might have some tough conversations. Not that you're going to write anybody off or run anybody off, but you might have to really look at it. I'm really intrigued by Shadarian Harrison. I would like to see Shadarian Harrison be a part of the mix here and be a part of the rotation, because I think they were really hyped and excited to get him. I think they felt like he was a great fit for the defense, and I tend to agree. I think he's a really good player. But, I think you got to get the young guys out there. So if you can get another veteran, experienced transfer, do it. But I don't see that as a major area of focus or area of urgency. I think at some point you're going to have to transition into that next wave of guys. You had Pinnock, Mathis, Williams, Woods, Devonshire for so long that it's time to sort of move on, I think, and see what you've got and find out who that next sort of where that next run of 2 and 3 year starters is going to come from. BirdGuy68 asks, coaching staff, who stays and who goes? Any position changes within the staff? I don't know if anybody's going to change positions within the staff. There might be. I do think there will be position changes or staffing changes. It might not be until after the coaches convention in the first week of January. Really, the offensive coordinator, there was a sense of urgency to get that done, I think, and rightfully so. I don't think you have quite the urgency to change. I think everybody's looking at positions on the offensive side of the ball. I think, Taekwon Underwood seems to be locked in, but you're looking at Dave Borbely and Andre Powell and Tim Salem. I think probably if there are further changes that come from, the changes that arise, and certainly changes that are initiated by Pat Narduzzi, it would probably be among those guys. I don't know if it would be all of them. I don't know if it would be any of them. But that's where I would that's where I'm kind of looking. I wouldn't be surprised to see, I shouldn't say I wouldn't be surprised. I expect to see more changes on the offensive side of the ball. It's just a question of who and when they come to pass. Defensively, my guess is it's either if guys decide they want to retire or move on to different jobs. I don't see Pat Narduzzi firing anybody there. Noel R asks, what premium board members are most likely to get banned in 2024? I don't ban as many people as a lot of people probably think. On the free board, trolls and things like that, yeah, we ban a lot of people, but on the premium board, people get long leashes. There are timeouts that get given that are given out, but for the most part, we have pretty long leashes when it comes to the premium board. There'll be a few each year, but probably I would say a half dozen or less that actually get banned and are not permitted back. I mean, I can only think of a few, probably less than 6 from this past year that were banned, more or less permanently. And there was always an old rule of nobody's really banned permanently, but some people get banned permanently. And I don't know if anybody who got banned this year is going to be banned permanently, but it'll probably be a while. So what will 2024 bring? I don't know. You guys always surprise me with finding new ways and new reasons for me to have to consider banishment. But we'll see. Pickgrad 2018. What's the latest on the quarterback situation? Is Cade Bell planning to stay pat or trying to bring in a starter? I mean, I think the movement toward bringing in a transfer started before Cade Bell was hired. I think Cade Bell, obviously, once he was hired, had to sign off on a few things to continue moving forward in that direction. But I think they will get a transfer. I mean, I'll just keep saying what I've been saying all along. I think they will get a transfer. I think it's highly likely that it's not someone that it's someone who is not in the transfer portal yet. But as we said on the live stream on Wednesday night, and I posted on the message board, there is sort of an extended window there. Basically for players who are in the college football playoffs, that if the transfer portal window closes on January 2nd, but if you're in the playoffs, if you play a game after January 2nd, you've got 5 days after your game that you can go into the portal, even if it's after that January 2nd date. So my guess is that's what Pitt is looking at. We'll see what comes out of it. H2PSSOE22 says, are you taking the over or under on 12.5 conference wins for Pitt hoops? We talked a lot about this. I talked a lot yesterday on the Morning Pitt about this. We talked a lot about it on the live stream on Wednesday night. It's 19 games. Like 12-7 feels like probably a pretty good run through those 19 games. We put them 12-8 overall in the conference, so it would put them at 21-11 on the season, entering the ACC tournament, and I think that would be pretty good. So I think I could take the under on 12.5. Put them right at 12, and they'd still end up with a pretty solid season. A pretty good record of with 21 wins, potentially 22 or 23 if they can win a couple in the ACC tournament. To go over 13 feels like a lot. 13 feels like a lot. And 13, if they win 13 conference games, that means that in these final, 19, they're going 13-6 over January and February, which is a grind. That means they're going 13-7 in conference play, and it means they're going 22-10, right, in the regular season, which, now opens up the window for 23-24 wins overall, before you get to Selection Sunday. I just can't quite go that far. So I think I go under, with the prediction probably being 11 or 12 wins. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I have to go back and see what I predicted before the season, but I had no idea about this team before the season. I still am finding out about this team, but I really had no idea before the season started. Let's see here. Joe Magarak asks, does the Pitt team need a quarterback from the portal to be successful in Cade Bell's offensive system? I don't know if it has as much to do with Cade Bell's offensive system as it has to do with adding another player to compete, to compete with Christian Bear and Nate Yarnell. Unless you believe Ty Diefenbach and or Julian Duggar are going to provide that level of competition, you saw what you had last year. You saw what you had out of Bear and Yarnell, and Bear had real issues with, protecting the football. Yarnell looked promising, but do you want to go into next year with one guy who looks promising in a handful of games at the end of the season and one guy who had real trouble protecting the ball and had issues with turnovers? And beyond that, you have a redshirt freshman who never played and a true freshman who's coming in. Is that what you want to have going into the season? I think I think they wanted to get a transfer portal quarterback before they even hired Cade Bell. I think they had their eyes on the portal and potential portal entries. So I don't think it's as much about finding someone who fits Cade Bell's system, although obviously you want to make sure you have a quarterback who fits his system. I don't think it's a matter of going to the portal because you need a quarterback to fit his system. I think it's a matter of going to the portal because you need another quarterback. And this room could stand to add one more body to it. And a good player, if you can get one. Alan McMurray wants to know, can you bring the locker room back for 2024? No, I can't. I can't bring the locker room back. And I'm not going to bring the locker room back. The locker room has been gone for like 3 years now. The locker room message board was our old off-topic message board. And it was all fun and games until it just became more of a hassle than it was worth. To moderate that thing, to take down all the stupidity and nonsense. I was spending more time moderating that board than I was on like the Between Fifth and Forbes message board, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it. There are plenty of places to talk about things other than Pitt sports. We can just talk about Pitt sports on the Panther-Lair.com message board. So no, we won't be bringing back the locker room. And posters who insist on trying to make every other board into the locker room will have their posting privileges revoked. If you never saw the locker room message board when it existed, consider yourself lucky. Really. Let's see. All right, here's the last one. We'll get Big Marty 1 in here. Says, in your opinion, is Andre Powell a coach who hasn't produced and should be replaced? He coached some great backs. Should he be blamed for poor running back usage under the offensive coordinator? The special teams so-so, in my opinion, but I'm not looking at him as a must-go assistant coach. I think my biggest issue with Powell is usage and personnel. If we're going to be told and be expected to believe that Andre Powell is in charge of personnel, of who goes in, when they go in. And I actually kind of believe that. For a while, we just heard it from Pat Narduzzi. And so you said, well, is that really the case? Or is he trying to deflect something? But I've heard it from other people who wouldn't really stand to gain or lose anything by telling the truth about it. I've heard from other people that Andre Powell is in charge of the personnel with the running backs, of deciding who's on the field, when they're on the field, when they come off, when they go on, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just been befuddling. It really has. I don't know if Izzy Abanikanda breaks Tony Dorsett's single-game rushing record last year if Rodney Hammond stays healthy. Not because I think Hammond's a better back than Abanikanda, but because I don't know if Andre Powell really would have stuck with Abanikanda to put up that kind of to have that kind of production. I don't understand it. And there were never any good explanations really offered for the decisions that were made this year. There were never any good explanations offered for, the decisions that were made with like Vincent Davis. Like 2021, like Izzy Abanikanda should have been a force back there. And somehow it wasn't. I mean, you look at this year, you're like, where's Rodney Hammond's usage? Remember that stat? Pitt was like 8-0 when he gets 15 carries or more in a game or something like that over the course of his career. And yet this guy can't buy a dozen carries or 15 carries or 20 carries in a game. When he gets volume, he succeeds. He's a good player. He's a good running back. But he just couldn't get any kind of workload. And so that's my biggest issue with Powell. I think the blocking schemes have been fine. I think when he's had a dynamic returner, they've been able to take advantage of the blocking schemes. I don't blame him for the punt issues quite as much because I think to a large extent, almost all of those kickers and punters work with their own coaches. So the mechanics and the actual kicking are not as much under Powell's, oversight. But there were some operation things that looked like they were an issue. And at some point, he's the one who's got to decide which punter is going out there. And if the guys that we saw over the last 2 years were really the best punters, then he did a poor job of talent acquisition. And so I think you can hold him accountable for that. I think you can hold him accountable for the running back usage and how those guys were deployed. And if you feel like you want to move on after 9 years, I think that's understandable when there have been a lot of head-scratching personnel decisions in the backfield. But otherwise, I mean, I don't really, I tend to not be in the business of calling for people to lose their jobs. So I'm not going to go there now, but I'm saying if you want to make a case for why Andre Powell should be let go, I think that's what you would make it on. Not necessarily the punting itself, but the personnel at punter and the decisions of who to play at that position. And then, more importantly, the usage, the personnel, and the deployment at running back, really over the last 9 years or so. I just don't know if it was always giving them the best chance to establish an effective running game. So that's my thought on that. We'll see what happens, like I say, in the next few weeks as far as who stays and who goes and what ends up changing there. In the meantime, that's it. Our final Morning Pit for calendar year 2023. I thought we'd do some like end of year recap or something. I mean, it's no fun if we don't have video, right? So we didn't do that. Not going to have a Morning Pit on New Year's Day. Just enjoy the day, watch the football games, have a great time. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need a Morning Pit that day. We'll be back at it on January 2nd, though. And of course, like I said, we'll have a live post-game show tomorrow after the Syracuse game. We'll go live after that game ends, and we'll talk until about 3 o'clock or so, give or take, depending on what you guys call for. But it'll be one of those post-game shows where you get in the comment section and you post your comments and your questions, and we have a little chat about the game. Just like we did during football season, we'll do it during hoops as well for select games, and tomorrow's game is one of them. So big game for the Panthers. Let's hear what you think about it. We'll see what I think about it. We'll talk about it after the game. So make sure you tune in for that right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Never miss any of our Pitt video content. Have a happy and safe New Year's. Don't do anything too crazy over the weekend, but enjoy it. And hope you have a good time. And we will talk to you in 2024 for the Morning Pit on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024, right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.